Welcome in the name of God. My name is Doug Hostetter. I'm a Mennonite minister and also a member of the Pax Christi International United Nations Advocacy Team. But I am here today as a member of the board of LUKE10. LUKE10 is a new organization brought together by Protestant, Catholic, Evangelical, and historic peace churches to, in the spirit of the Good Samaritan, reach out across racial, ethnic, and religious lines to help our neighbors in the Muslim world. We have started by sending urgently needed PPE to Iranian hospitals struggling to deal with the COVID pandemic, made worse by the US economic and banking sanctions, which have made it difficult or impossible for them to buy the supplies and equipment that they need. In addition to sending medical assistance, LUKE10 is also trying to reach out to the Muslim world to build understanding between our peoples, our countries, and our faith traditions. We are excited to welcome you to this first International Interfaith Webinar. Who is my neighbor? Abrahamic dialogue in the time of COVID. I would like to introduce Dr. John P. Hartley. Dr. Hartley is a scholar diplomat based at Yale University and is president of the board of LUKE10 organization. He is also the chair of Evangelicals for Peace and directs a task force for the World Evangelical Alliance. Dr. Hartley is the first American to graduate from an Iranian university since the Iranian Revolution, receiving his MA in Iranian history from the University of Isfahan in 2007. He will moderate this webinar. Dr. Hartley.
Thank you very much, Doug. And thanks to the entire LUKE10 team. It's been a joy to work together to bring this webinar about. And I can't tell if I'm visible on the screen or not right now, Margaret. And the entire LUKE10 board, which is comprised of leaders from Catholic, Episcopal, historic peace churches, evangelical and other community leaders, is overjoyed to have with us the panel that we do. We've come together in the spirit of LUKE10, the desire to authentically express concern for our neighbors, something that Jesus in the scriptures has called us to do. And with that in mind, as we walk together amidst this global pandemic where so many people in so many places from so many religious traditions are suffering at the hands of something very impersonal, it presents new challenges to us as faith leaders to understand how do we be faithful to our tradition's teachings to love and recognize our neighbors. So with that in mind, as we've done this work in our humble way to express compassion to the Iranian people amidst the pandemic, we want to do so in a way that recognizes that our Iranian neighbors are people of dignity with deep traditions, deep resources for addressing their community's needs. And in that spirit, we approach this conversation. So there are other LUKE10 board members who are going to work with me to introduce our panelists. Reverend Chloe Breyer, who directs the Interfaith Center of New York and is a board member of LUKE10, and Ambassador Mehdi Farizadeh, who is a former ambassador from Iran to the United Nations and who works with the LUKE10 board as well. We'll be introducing our panelists. And so I will now turn things over to Reverend Breyer to introduce our first panelist.
Good morning. It is a great honor to be here. My name is the Reverend Chloe Breyer. I direct the Interfaith Center of New York and I'm a board member of LUKE10. I have the honor of introducing our first panelist, Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb, one of the first women in Jewish history to become a rabbi and who is a pioneering Jewish feminist, a human rights activist, a visual artist, storyteller, and educator as well. She has been a congregational rabbi since the fall of 1973. in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She is engaged in many multi-faith, multicultural organizing efforts in solidarity with racial, indigenous, and gender justice, as well as Palestinian liberation struggles. She currently serves as Director of Youth and Family Programming at Hamat Halev and sits on the Rabbinic Council of Jewish Voices for Peace. She is a board chair of the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity and is the author of many books as well. She was one of the first, if not the first, rabbis to visit Iran after the 1979 revolution, and came with a delegation from the Fellowship of Reconciliation, and then returned a second time with many Jewish participants from the United States. Rabbi Lynn is a practitioner of Torah nonviolence as well. Thank you so much.
Right.
Shalom Aleichem. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, everyone. I would like to begin today by expressing my deep appreciation for Ayatollah Damad and Bishop Chain and the members of LUKE10, and to all the listeners who are here to participate in solidarity and love for our neighbors in Iran and around the world, and to lift up our common heart that desires goodness and well-being and dignity for all people. This is the message of all of our faith traditions, and we are here to enact it through this conversation. I also want to express a prayer. I am wearing a traditional garb called a talit, which is known as a talit for the fringes that are in all four directions of the garment, to remind us that wherever we turn, God is with us. The Spirit of life is with us in every direction and also in our hearts. There is a traditional blessing which I will recite as a prayer, which I have written on a beautiful piece of stone, which was given to me in Esfahan by a Jewish man who has a shop in Esfahan in the square. And I noticed it as I was walking around the square. And of course, I went in to meet a Jewish brother and to learn about his life. And it was wonderful to meet him a second time. And this is when he offered me this. This prayer is our ancient priestly blessing. We raise our hands and pray for all people who are suffering, who are in need of healing, who are in need of love and support. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikumecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. I would like to honor the long history of Jewish people living in Iran and the shared history that goes back to biblical times. I was reminded of this when I was in Iran visiting the tomb of Kherush, or Cyrus. And of course, Cyrus is the Persian ruler who allowed Jewish people to come back to the temple in Jerusalem. And that act of love and faith began good relationships that include a long history of Jewish study and learning in Iran, including the great Talmudic academies of Surah and Pumbedita. I want to send greetings to Jews of Tehran, Shiraz, and Esfahan, which is half of the beauty of the world, where I had an opportunity to pray, which was deeply moving for me. Jews of Iran are the oldest Jewish extant community, ongoing community in the world. And they live in Iran and find meaning in their long history and culture there. I am reminded of the surah from Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, Ayat 62, that those who engage in righteousness among Muslims, Jews, and Christians shall not fear or grieve. And it is a joy to come together for the common purpose of well-being, the well-being of humanity, so that whatever religious fault lines may exist do not prevent us from striving to uphold, protect the health and dignity and the well-being of every human being, especially our Iranian brothers and sisters on this day. I am reminded of how deeply held the idea of the dignity of each person is through a story I would like to tell that happened to me when I was visiting the first time in Jamkaran. That this was the end of our trip, and we had met with scholars in Qom, and we went to this beautiful site where, as was told to me, and please forgive me if I am misrepresenting what I understood, that the Mahdi came 1,000 years ago and appeared by a well to show compassion and mercy for people so they would not lose hope. The young imam that met us at the gate and allowed us to come in told us that we were welcome because we came in dignity and respect. We prayed in the masjid there, which was a deeply moving experience. And as we came out, he said to me, "Rabbi," and that was me. And I turned around and we began a conversation. He said the history of the well. And he said, and yet this well, although it is special to us, the whole world is special. The whole earth is a holy place. I said, yes, this is true of our tradition. Even though Jerusalem is special to us, it is special to other people, to Christians and to Muslims, and the whole world is a holy place. He said, you know, there is a saying by the poet Sadi, there is a jewel, and if you mark up that jewel, the whole jewel is harmed. And that is the same with humanity. If you hurt one person, the whole world is hurt. I said, yes, this is also in our Talmud. If you take one life, you take the life of the world. And we began speaking these beautiful sayings to each other. And I was facing him and he was facing me. And I turned around and I noticed that there was a crowd of 300 worshipers that had come out of the mosque, and they were standing around us, listening to us. And I thought to myself of a phrase from one of the rabbis of my tradition, where is God? Wherever you let God in. And so may this be the beginning of a time that we let God into the conversations we are having, and may that fuel us to end all hostilities and to encourage each person listening to do all they can to manifest good neighborliness throughout the world quickly and in our day. Amen.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Leon. We're grateful for your thoughts. I'll take a minute now to introduce Bishop John Chain. For time purposes, I'll keep the introduction short, but Bishop Chain is a retired bishop of Washington. He serves on numerous charity boards, working to serve people in need around the country on all kinds of issues, and we're overjoyed to have him on the LUKE10 board as well. He has also been to Iran numerous times, including being among the few Americans to have met with presidents and other religious and senior leaders in the country. He's worked in track 2 diplomacy on behalf of prisoners and on behalf of the interests and concerns, not only of Americans, but of Iranians and of humanity as a whole in his interactions with Iran. And we're overjoyed to have him share with us now.
Thank you very much, John. I'd like to begin with a prayer because the whole process of LUKE10 began with a prayer back in April. Actually, for me, earlier for you and Peter and some others. So if you will, I will offer this prayer. May God bless us with discomfort and easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships so that we may live deep within the heart of our Creator. May God bless us with anger at injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of people so that we may work for justice, for freedom, and for peace. May God bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, war, and the darkness of this pandemic, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and turn their pain and loss into joy. And may God bless us with enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in the world so that we can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice, kindness, and healing to all who seek a better life. Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to be brief. I will just say that I received an email from Ambassador Faridzadeh, along with emails that came from the Center for Interreligious Dialogue back in late March, early April, talking about the impact that COVID-19 was having on the country and the people of Iran, and asking if there was a way in which religious leaders could come together to respond and support the needs of the people who were really overwhelmed simply because of the impact of sanctions that have been brought against the country, primarily by by the United States. So the issue was, I don't think that's going to be possible. And then out of the blue arose John Hartley and Peter and Mehdi and others. And so we were able to come together to pull LUKE10 together. The purpose is just to address the issue of supporting through funds raised to purchase the equipment for the Iranians to purchase the equipment that they need to deal with this pandemic in ways that we can't even imagine. In our country, we're blessed with, even with the pandemic, we have resources available to us. They are not really available in Iran today. And so we are together on LUKE10 to address that need, and also engaging with other Muslim countries to remind them that we are all collected together under that very powerful verse of LUKE10. We are all lovers of God, and we are all called to love our neighbors and to work and bear the burdens of one another with compassion. So I look forward to the discussions about this, and I hope we get some questions about what do we do and why do we do it.
Thank you very much, Bishop Chain. I'm grateful to have you with us, and all in attendance are going to benefit from both your heart as expressed even in these moments, as well as your insight. So I'm very grateful to have you with us. I will now turn things over to Ambassador Faridzadeh to introduce Ayatollah Damat.
Thank you, John. My name is Mehdi Faridzadeh from Islamic Institute of New York. I would like to express my appreciation to all members of LUKE10 and Peter Kelly, Bishop Chain, and Ed Martin, Doug, and all members, and I am honored to introduce Ayatollah Muhaqqiq Damat. Sayyid Mustafa Muhaqqiq Damat was born in 1945 in Qom. His father was prominent Shia Marja, Grand Ayatollah, and his grandfather, Abdul Karim Hairi Yazdi, was founder of Qom Seminary. He studied Islamic education in Arabic, literature, Quran, Hadith, Islamic philosophy, theology, and jurisprudence at the Feyziye School in Qom, حوزه علمیه فیضیه در قم. With this background, he achieved the degree of Ijtihad or Ayatollah in 1970. Parallel of these traditional Islamic studies, he pursued an academic education at the University of Tehran, where he obtained his bachelor in Islamic philosophy, 1969, and his master in Islamic jurisprudence, 1980. Later, he received his PhD in law at the Catholic University of Louvain-la-Neuve in 1996. He is member of Academy of Science of Iran and professor in Faculty of Law at Shahid Beheshti University. He is the author of 27 published books, I think more than 27, and more than 50 academic journal articles. Dr. Damat is a regular contributor of Global Academic Conference and Interfaith Dialogue Summit. Ayatollah Muhaqqiq, floor is yours.
Thank you. صدای منو دارین؟
داریم.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mehdi. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I as well begin my talking by praying a sentence from Holy Quran and another sentence by myself. Holy Quran says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. Amen. O Lord, we have indeed heard the summoner calling to faith, declaring have faith in your Lord. So we believed. O Lord, forgive us our sins and absolve us of our misdeeds and make us die with the pious. O Lord, give us what you have promised us through your apostles, and do not disgrace us in the day of resurrection. Indeed, you do not break your promise. Unquote. O Lord, make us successful in loving each other and all humanities as brothers and sisters. O Lord, clean from our hearts any hostility and replace instead friendship and love. O Lord, we gathered here to serve to gather the humanities, to gather your slaves, to serve your creatures. O Lord, make us successful to serve them. Before everything, I would like to thank a lot of old friends that they have prepared for me this opportunity to visit these respectful persons and attend this meeting and to have meeting with them and get the benefit from talking of them, especially my dear friend, His Eminence, Bishop Chain. I'm so glad to see him. I had seen him for the first time, perhaps 20 years ago, not now. So long for me. And I'm so, Rabbi Lane, it was too long time that I had not seen Bishop Chain. I'm so glad to see him tonight. So I ask my Lord, I ask my God to make us successful in this talking. And I should thank Mr. Mehdi Faridzadeh and as well as other persons that they are helping for these meetings. At the end as well, I would thank you that you have served our country, Iran, the people of Iran, from many problems that have made for them. And I should thank, and I should God give forgiveness and acceptance by himself, by God. Amen.
Amin. And thank you, Ayatollah Damad, for your prayers and for your expressions of authenticity. I know that for many of us Americans, and I'll speak specifically for my community of evangelicals, we rarely have the opportunity to be with either rabbis or imams or ayatollahs like the two of you, who are willing to be yourselves and to come into this conversation and share not only your wisdom but your hearts with us. So we're very grateful. The LUKE10 team, for those watching, our goal right now, and hopefully the internet cooperates with us, our goal right now is to facilitate really a conversation among the panelists, more than a series of lectures by the panelists. And so I will be facilitating that and moderating that. A reminder to the audience that you can use the Q&A function with the two bubbles at the bottom of the screen to write questions at any point in time. You don't need to wait for a question and answer period. Ambassador Faridzadeh and Reverend Breyer will be reviewing those questions as the webinar proceeds, and we will do our best to attend to them and in gratefulness for your engagement. So Rabbi Lynn, Ayatollah Damad, Bishop Chain, LUKE10 and its membership is committed to growing and calling the Christian community to learn what it means to love our neighbors who are across different social barriers in this time of COVID, right? And that's always a challenging thing, right? Loving neighbors who are very different from us is always difficult. In a pandemic, when concerns about personal health, about the health and well-being of our loved ones, the desire to honor the public with social distancing, and all of these different dynamics, loving our neighbor becomes even more complicated in a practical sense. And my question really, I'd love to hear you all begin by sharing a little bit, especially Ayatollah Damad and Rabbi Lynn, about where you see the sweet spot, if you would, where as Christians, we can, in this time, learn to love our neighbors, show compassion to people who are in need of compassion, while also maintaining and expressing our deep respect for those neighbors. What are your thoughts? What are your counsel? What ideas that you have that would be of encouragement or help to us based on your traditions? Either one of you, feel free to kick us off.
I suggest first the ladies first.
Okay.
Ladies first.
I'm often tempted to put my beard
Yes,
on.
we ask no. We ask Rabbi to begin.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I believe that loving our neighbor is also difficult in the United States. And it is difficult because those who are serving us the most on the front lines of healthcare, on the front lines of providing food to our tables, and in many other ways are the most vulnerable to COVID-19. And it is, even though we are a country of great resources, we do not share these resources equitably, as we all know. I believe that loving our neighbor means that we center the wisdom and experience of those who are most harmed, directly impacted by our systemic failures and experience violence. People who are experiencing military violence and experiencing state violence in this country and around the world deserve and need to have their leadership and their voices and their experiences centered in all of our work, so that we remove the systemic problems and not only advance charity, which of course is needed, or aid, which of course is needed, but also transform the systemic issues. And in this, I do believe that religious communities can play a role by cultivating relationships and understanding and deep listening, so we understand the differences as well as our common heart, so that we can work together.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Lynn. Ayatollah Damad, you have additional thoughts or responses? And Bishop
Yes.
Chain, feel free to jump in with questions after Ayatollah Damad has shared.
Yes. Do you have my voice?
Yes.
Yes. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You know that in Holy Quran, there are many verses recommending us and recommending the faithful, recommending the society of faith of the Muslim society, that you should serve your neighbors as yourself. I recite one verse: and do good to your parents, relatives, orphans, the needy, the neighbors, who is a near relative, the neighbor who is not, who is a stronger, the very close friend, the wayfarers, and to those slaves whom you own. Verily Allah does not like the arrogant. Amin. Quoted. This verse recommended us and advised us, not only advise. This verse recommends us, order us, that you should serve your neighbors as your children, as your parent, as your brothers, as your father and mothers. You should not have any difference between your parents and your neighbors. And Holy Prophet very explicitly says, our Prophet has said this sentence, very, very famous hadith: he is not from us who sleeps at night while his neighbor is needy and hasn't any food and hasn't any food to eat. He is not from me. He is not Muslim. He is not faithful. And I cannot agree that he be a Muslim when he who that sleeps at night while his neighbor, he hasn't any food to eat. This is the hadith of Prophet. That wears us from God. So it is an obligatory for us to know who is my neighbor, and does he have any food to eat? Does he have any drug? This is our duty as a Muslim. It is my duty to know who is my neighbor. Does he need anything? If he needs anything, I should go to him and offer him politely. Thank you.
Thanks, Ayatollah Ahmad. Bishop Chain?
I just be very brief and remind people that listening to Rabbi Lynn and Ayatollah Ahmad, we are all bound together by a common core or charismatic theological teaching, regardless of whether we're Jews, Christians, or Muslims. And you've already heard that expressed by both the rabbi and by Ayatollah Ahmad. Unfortunately, I think people in the United States in particular, although that's my experience, really have had a hard time understanding that. And so therefore have not been able to embrace and really live into the teachings that we've just heard. So I pray that this is an opportunity for people to begin to learn how closely tied we are, even with our differences. But the differences are far less than the commonalities and the charismatic core theology that binds us together.
I would like to hold up a publication to demonstrate what I mean.
Yeah.
When the trade towers came down, my friend Abdul Abdul Rauf Campos Marchetti and I decided to start a peace walk. And we walked from Ground Zero to the masjid of Malik Shabazz. We walked many, many, many miles together throughout the streets of New York City, accompanied by Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, and Jews. And the whole length of that walk on Broadway, people saw our sign and us and stopped and started crying or clapping, walked with us. And both of us felt that if we give people the opportunities to come together and to demonstrate their neighborly love, they will. And so I think it's very important for those of us in religious leadership to continue to provide grassroots opportunities, not just in the academia or inside a church, but we carried this peace walk to over 20 cities throughout the United States and Canada. Thousands of people joined us, and these relationships are ongoing. May this heart of walking together, accompanying each other, even with masks for the moment, and at 6 feet apart, continue to inspire us to be together as we are able.
Thank you, Rabbi Lynn. You know, Ayatollah Damad shared a bit from the Quran and the Hadith about the role of the neighbor, or the importance of the neighbor to a faithful Muslim. In the rabbinic tradition, or in, you know, can you share an example about a particular teaching that would call the Jewish people to care for their neighbor?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
May I add to sentence what I have taught before, 2 moments?
Sure, and then Rabbi Lynn can
Is it
answer.
possible?
Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Excuse me, Rabbi, I interrupt you. From myself to the verse of Holy Quran, because inside the Holy Quran, he has emphasized in 2 groups as neighbors. One group of neighbors that they are very close to us. The second group is not very close, very stronger, that they have many distance with us. What does it mean? What does mean division with 2 groups of neighbors in this verse? My concept, my understanding is that God wants to say, all the human kinds are your neighbors, no difference. Real neighbors or other ones, because we have 2 groups of neighbors. One group of neighbors are very close to us, and the another groups that are not close to us. For example, any country outside of our country, many neighbors we have outside of country according to this verse. So all the humankinds, all the humanities are all neighbors. Thank you so much. Mr. Rabbi, Mrs. Rabbi, I interrupt you, excuse me.
I am happy to be interrupted by you.
Yes.
Ayatollah Damad.
Thank you.
It makes me feel at home in my own tradition when we have
Yes.
of all talking at once. So,
Yes.
yes, there are so many examples. One that comes to mind is in this discussion of the verse from Psalms, seek peace and pursue it. We are told, seek peace among those you know and pursue it among your enemies. So even this verse means that you are to seek peace and pursue it, meaning make a neighbor and a friend out of someone who is far from you in your thought and in your heart. And that is a religious obligation. It is not just a sentiment. It is a religious obligation to seek peace. And of course, being a good neighbor is found in the Torah. It is the foundational verse for Christian tradition, and of course for Jewish tradition. The verse that ends with "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," love your neighbor as yourself, to eres mi'ot rayo. It is the end of a series of commandments that tell us, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. Do not speak badly of your neighbor. Do not hate your neighbor in your heart. That will allow you to love your neighbor as yourself. So we are told to refrain from certain actions, to actively pursue assistance, and that is how we show our love. And of course, I have to end by saying the hospitality of people in Iran is unparalleled. You can be walking in the street, and if you kind of look or smile, you find yourself having dinner in somebody's house. And those of you who have traveled to Iran and to Palestine realize this tremendous hospitality is a practice of how you love your neighbor, meaning people that don't know you and you don't know, but there is this warmth of welcome that is unparalleled. It's hard to imagine that happening here in the United States, where you're just smiling at somebody in the street and suddenly you're eating a meal in their home and sleeping in their bed, and people are giving up their children's room for you. That doesn't happen here so much. So I think this is a great wisdom of practice that we learn from the kind people of Iran that we should take as a model for our own behavior.
Thank you, Rabbi Lynn. Bishop Chain, would you mind briefly sharing? So the Ayatollah has shared a bit about what the conception of neighbor is, his take of it from his tradition, and Rabbi Lynn has shared a bit. Would you mind briefly sharing how would you understand the definition of neighbor from the Christian tradition?
Neighborliness and compassion for me are connected. I look at the synoptic gospels, the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and also the asynoptic or John. They all have the same message, which is you are called to love God with all that you have, with everything that you have, your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body, and you are to love your neighbor in the same exact way. If you do not do that, you have really suspended that commandment which transcends in Jesus' teaching, the law and the prophets. So it's really clear. I mean, the frustration that I have as an individual is that so often I forget that, but I also see my denomination talking about that all the time, but in a sense, not engaging in responding to the need of my neighbor. And I think that to me is really heartbreaking. And I'm an old community organizer. Saul Alinsky, all those guys, I did that in the ancient days in Boston, but nonetheless, that's my heartbreak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that should be heartbreaking. Thank you for sharing that. So I think that we have quite a few fabulous questions coming in from our audience. So I want to try to attend to one of those. Can I turn the microphone over to Ambassador Farizadeh to ask a question of Ayatollah Damad?
Yes, I have a question. Ayatollah Muhaqqaq Damad, as you know, there are many interpretation and school of thought in Islam. And as you know very well, consider the misuse of Islam. Extremist organizations such as Al-Qaeda or ISIS, Daesh, ignored and destroyed the good values of their religions, including fairness, tolerance, equality, peace, justice, and integrity. My question is, where do you fall on the spectrum? What do you think, and what is your opinion about the Shia school and Islamic school of thought? And as we know, Islam is Din al-Muhabba.
Thank you, Mr. Mehdi. The question that you propounded that it is very important. We have seen along our life that many of conflicts and hostilities between the religious people are originated from misunderstanding of religion. Yes, I agree with you. Many people are killing each other under the name of God, unfortunately. I'm sure if they understand the reality of religion, they could never fly and struggle with others in the way of God. I have named this kind of misunderstanding holy ignorance. Holy ignorance. It is the title of one of my books in Farsi. I mean, from the holy ignorance, the holy ignorant is who does not know, but he thinks that he knows. But his ignorance is covered by holiness because he does not know what's the meaning of God. He kills everybody under the name of God while he doesn't know what does mean the God. What's the concept of the word of God? I want to say that Shia is the sect inside many sects of Islamic groups that they emphasizes on the reason and the reasoning, understanding, thinking. And one of the Shia jurisprudence has 4 sources. One of 4 sources is reason. I think we should try to teach the reality of religion by demonstration. We have to teach the people that religion they obtain should be understandable by reason, not only by following somebody else only, without attaining the concept and being persuaded by our intellects. That is not religion. Religion is, it means what I understood by my reason, but my thinking. We should teach the people that understanding through thinking on religion and considering to having some personal experience is a must for everybody, especially we clergy people, clergy group. According to Shia, everybody should understand God by his reason, not by following. He should understand what's the meaning of resurrection, what's the meaning of unity of God, what's the meaning of the qualification, attributes of God, what's the meaning of God is mercy. We say in every pray that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. What is the meaning of mercy? God is merciful. What is the meaning of God is compassionate? If God is compassionate, we cannot kill each other. If God is merciful, we cannot kill anybody else. We should love each other, not kill him.
Thanks. I receive, even myself as a follower of Jesus, feel like I can receive from your words a call to the depths of Jesus's teaching, and not just to a conformity to the culture, the religious culture around me. Thank you very much. Reverend Breyer, I know there's more questions.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I would like to add, or Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq is or Imam, and he is the head of all schools of Shia, Ja'fari, Imam Ja'far. He said, Ad-Dinu huwa al-hub. The religion is love. The religion is love. And in another, he asked from his friend, Hal ad-dinu illa al-hub? Is there any meaning for religion without hope, without love? Religion means love only. Hal ad-dinu illa al-hub? Religion does have any meaning except love? This is the sentence of our Imam. Thank you.
There is so much that you shared that is worth discussing. I find myself wanting to go in 5 directions at once in response to you. I wonder, Chloe, if there are any questions coming from the audience that might relate to what Ayatollah Mohaqqaq Damad said about holy ignorance, about kinds of problems or challenges. I don't, anything along those lines?
There are some amazing questions spanning everything from how the vaccine should be distributed. Is the nation state the right way to prioritize, to the question of the treatment of Baha'is in Iran, to also the question of how or if, and in some ways this I'd like people to take a moment on this question, which is about what is God's gift, do you think God's gift is into the other 2 branches of the Abrahamic faith that you're on the call with right now? In other words, we have 3 faiths here: Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And in your view, what is God's gift in the other 2 traditions? So in some ways that might be a good place to start, because that's an unusual and kind of thought-provoking question. And we'll get to the other ones as soon as we can after that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Reverend Breyer. So panelists, when you think about the gifts in the others.
Should I answer, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
please. Yes, a short answer, please. Yes, thanks.
You should be aware that we are talking about the religions, religious activity, and religious groups, not the political groups. In Iran, the group that the lady referred to, that they are political people, they're political groups, not the religious groups. Although they have named on their groups under the name of religion, but their activities are political, not religious activity.
Thank you, Ayatollah Damad. I think that is one of the ways that our faiths find themselves misused, right? When belief and faith or expression of faith in action is confused for politics. And, thank you for that. Returning to Reverend Breyer's question, Rabbi Lin, how do you understand the idea of gifts from God in the Christian and Muslim traditions?
I believe these gifts are demonstrated by the way we treat each other. There are many common threads and also differences in the way that we understand our ways of life, but it comes down to providing sanctuary and shelter and support for each other across all fault lines. The way we treat each other and we are treated is very important. So I would start with simple how we behave toward each other is the way that we can show each other the gifts of our religious traditions. It says in the Talmud, which was conceived of in Iran, part of it, the Babylonian Talmud, Rahmana Liba Be, the Holy One desires the heart. And this is where we begin, and this is where we end, to demonstrate our heart by good action and supportive actions. And that hospitality is very much demonstrated by sharing resources, especially the vaccine, by delivering it to those who are most need it, and to make sure that it is given without regard to national, religious identity, but it is distributed to those who need it. That would be a demonstration of love that would demonstrate religious values.
Bishop Chain, if I could follow up on what Rabbi Lin just shared, there's a question from the audience that says that with the sight of vaccines on the horizon, every nation is rushing to secure sufficient vaccine doses for their quote unquote, for their own citizens before others. It's a stark example of preferring your own people over your neighbors. Can you share your thoughts on how it would be different if we were to take an approach to the vaccine and these types of decisions that's driven from a religious perspective, all three religious perspectives, but asking you first. In other words, when we're facing limited resources, a limited number of vaccines, for example, how would you say we should prioritize our own people versus our neighbors?
Well, unfortunately, to answer the question as briefly as I can, unfortunately, we can see a lack of neighborliness in our own country in terms of our prioritization of vaccines, and also our unwillingness to embrace the larger global community in a cooperative effort. And I think that in itself is an indictment about who we are as a great country, and we are a great country. Failure to engage and support the work of others in making sure that every person has the opportunity, when the vaccines are available, to receive them is really critical. Unfortunately, we are divided by a nation state ideology that I think has been very, very unfortunate. And I think, talking directly to the vaccine issue, The bottom line is that a lot of people consider Christians and Jews, anyone who's engaged in supporting the Islamic Republic when it comes to healthcare issues at this point, is involved in a political action. And this is not a political action.
Mhm.
This is a human rights issue, and it's an issue that binds us together as Muslims, Christians, and Jews. And yet, when we try to embrace it and try and bring that issue to the table, we are criticized and marginalized as religious. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with Iran right now. I mean, we all have many friends there. What I do know is they don't have right now the ability to acquire the PPEs that are necessary to continue to help prevent the spread of this virus in that country. And why? Because we have marginalized that country. We have made it very difficult for them financially to acquire these implements, these necessary pieces of equipment to treat the virus and to be able to suspend it if it's possible from one person to another. If that's where we are as a community, then when it comes to the vaccine distribution, we really have a problem. We violated the very theology that we have been talking about now for quite some time on this webinar. We have really obliterated who is my neighbor, because what we're saying is it's all about me right now.
Thank you very much, Bishop Chain. We are getting close to the end of our time together before we start to overrun, and there's so much more we could talk about. I'm excited that the University of Tehran has agreed to work with LUKE10 to host a follow-up webinar to this one. So for all of you who are watching, please keep your antennas up for news about a follow-up webinar. And Bishop Chain, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Washington National Cathedral, to Michelle Dibley and Margaret Rawls and the team there to make this a possibility, because it is not easy to do this kind of a webinar between the United States and Iran. And I think it went very, very smoothly. And I appreciate all the people who desired to be a part of this today and offered questions that may not have been answered. I hope that they can be answered in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. And before I turn things over to each of the panelists to make a final comment, for those who are watching, LUKE10 has worked hard to respect US government sanctions against Iran, and to, while respecting those sanctions, to do what we can to take advantage of legal and viable mechanisms for providing help. And that was not a small task, but thankfully there are a wonderful number of people who have helped to make that possible. So we are right now able to provide aid to people suffering directly from COVID in Iran. And you can make a donation toward that end on our website. So please, the smallest donation makes a difference. $2, $5, $3 can put masks on children who don't have them right now, or who can provide basic equipment to a hospital that is looking for it. So please do take the time to go to our website and check it out and reach out to us if you have any questions. I also want to just express our overwhelming appreciation for all of our partners in helping to make this happen. Thank you for getting that started. And that includes the National Cathedral, of course, the Interfaith Center of New York, which has been vital in helping to make this event happen. Doug Hostetter from our board and from Pax Christi International, who has done a lot of the legwork in making it all happen, as well as the World Evangelical Alliance. We have a couple board members at LUKE10 from the World Evangelical Alliance who've also been very helpful. So thank you to everybody. I'd like to give Rabbi Lynn a chance to make any final comments.
I want to express my joy at being able to have a conversation with Ayatollah Damad and with Bishop Chain before an audience to express my love of Islam and Christianity and the people of Iran. And I wish and pray and hope that we do find our way through this difficult time together. And I would like to ask my Jewish siblings to remember that Iran is the reason that Judaism has survived, because we found our home there and created a great Jewish civilization there, and our community still lives there. And so as we think about our relationship to Iran, let us remember what a jewel in our tradition the civilization and people of Iran are to our own tradition. Thank you so much for inviting me to attend and be part of this beautiful gathering.
Thank you, Rabbi Lynn. Ayatollah Damad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to refer that to what Bishop Chain said. I want to add something to what he said. In Holy Quran, there are many different words for example, donating, charity, and kindship, friendship to the others. But there is a word very important that category is, it is above all. It is ithar. Ithar. I want to translate altruism. Is it right, Mr. Chairman? Altruism.
Altruism.
Altruism. Altruism.
Mm-hmm.
Altruism. It is above all. This word is above all. It is above kindness. It is above donating. Altruism can be in the various kind, like sacrifice in the way of home, or for keeping the other person. This word has used by, in the first time in the West literature, used by Auguste Comte, French philosopher of 18th century. But Holy Quran said, a faithful is who prefers all the others benefit on his benefit himself, preferring the others to, we should prefer the others to ourselves. So Bishop Chain, Iran, our country, is trying to make the vaccine for COVID-19 today's. But I'm sure your countries and other Western countries, I'm sure that they will make the vaccine before our country. I ask your people that you should prefer the others on yourself.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So there are many other questions that have been asked on the Q&A page. The LUKE10 team will look those over and see if there's anything we need to do or could do to follow up on any of them. Feel free to use the LUKE10 webpage and Facebook page to let us know if you are interested in a serious discussion of those things. And I want to close with just a brief thought. Loving is a lot easier to talk about than to do. That's true with my 7-year-old son, and that's true with my 19-year-old son, and that is true with my wife. It is a lot easier to say than to do. And when it comes to loving thickly, right, kind of applying the depths of our tradition's teaching to our relationships with all people, it is not a simple thing. And so what I've heard, one of the things I've heard from each of the panelists today is that for people of faith, the work of doing so isn't really optional. We don't have the freedom to pick and choose whom we work hard to love faithfully. We are called to love faithfully and obediently, as our Most High God has called us. So thank you for deepening my understanding of these things through your conversation, and for calling us all to that type of faithfulness. I'm overjoyed and grateful. Again, please check out the LUKE10 website and look for news about the follow-up webinar that we're working with on the theologies of friendship together with the University of Tehran. We're grateful and pray that your days and your ways and your people be blessed with grace, with mercy from the Most High. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you very, very much.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your excellent contributions.
Goodbye.
I'm grateful.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Take care.